Hey everyone, welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash. I'm your show host over here at Fall Obsession. Thank you for tuning in to another new podcast. I've always tried to steer clear of politics on our show, and I stand by that. We've had some podcasts and some topics over the years where we have kind of been in a gray area, flirted with that line a little bit, but while as much as I say that we try to steer clear of politics, there's also a time and place for it in hunting in the outdoors. And I believe that is when our rights as hunters are being threatened. I believe that is applicable to over regulating and over restricting hunters, I should say, and hunting bans in certain regard to where wildlife conservation and wildlife management efforts are disregarded and factual information is disregarded. All of these things, I think, are where we as hunters and outdoors men and women need to have a voice and make our voice heard. So my guest this week on the show is a good friend of mine. He's been on the podcast before, Mike Behrens, and we get into all that. We talk specifically about a couple of new items that have recently been on our minds regarding new regulations or restrictions in states like Kentucky and Texas. We talk a little bit about the stuff with wolves and mountain lions that's obviously been going on in Colorado, as well as a ton of other instances and circumstances that that we drum up. So it's an interesting conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys get something out of it. I think it's very important for hunters and outdoors men and women to be more than just folks that are going to their local sporting goods store and buying a hunting license every year. We need to be tuned into what's going on both in our state and other states around us, other states that have large impacts on hunting in the outdoors, and anywhere in between. So we get into all that in this podcast, and again, hope you guys enjoy. Before I turn it over to the episode, though, we got to hit a few things with our partners. First and foremost, our headlining sponsor for Fall Obsession Podcast is Hoot Camo. I started rocking some Hoot Camo last year in 2023. My first hunt with Hoot was flatland mule deer hunt in Colorado. I was super impressed with the pattern, super pleased with it. The gear held up phenomenally in regard to warmth in the cold weather, durability in the thick and prickly brush. Couldn't have asked for a better quality of camouflage, and the patterns themselves are very versatile, very functional. I encourage you guys to go check out Hoot Camo, go to their website and learn about the inspiration behind their unique patterns and how they work in different environments. Hoot also has a bunch of other gear on their website, such as just general lifestyle gear, fishing gear, some golf gear, that kind of stuff. So they have a little bit of everything for everybody. It's not just camouflage. But if you are looking to get into that good high quality set of camouflage for a price point that's reasonable for the blue collar hunter. I know everything's expensive right now and it can be hard sometimes to make that investment into good camo. Hoot makes that a little bit more realistic with some good price points for that high quality gear. So head on over to hootcamo.com, check them out, and if you want to place an order, use the code FALLOBSESSION15 and that will save you some money at checkout. hootcamo.com. We have a new partner on our podcast now that I'm super excited about, News on Safaris. They are a premier safari outfitter over there in Africa, and they have treated our staff that has hunted with them very well. We have folks on our team and then other folks that we know that have hunted with News on, and they have great things to say about their experience out there. So I encourage you guys to go check them out if you are looking to make that trip over there to hunt some stuff that you're not going to get over here in the States, have an experience unlike anything else. Then go check out News on Safaris. If you are interested in booking a hunt or learning more, the contact over there, his name is Tim. His phone number is 303-946-9441. And yes, he did tell me that I could give his phone number out, so I'm not just throwing him a bunch of random phone calls with that one. But he wants you to call him. He wants you guys to talk to him and learn more about the opportunity. And if you tell him that Fall Obsession sent you, you will get a laundry list of stuff and benefits on this, and I have it all here for you guys. a $500 trophy credit, free lodging, food, drinks, all that kind of stuff. Your fees for your professional hunters, trackers, and skinners are covered, and it also includes the discount includes some basic trophy prep that'll be taken care of. All of these things equal a $2,250 value per hunter, and that is valid when you book for up to 4 people. So if you do the math on that, that's $9,000 up to, at least, in savings. That's an incredible deal. And all you got to do is tell Tim that Fall Obsession sent you. So give Tim a call, rewind if you need to get his number again, and let him know that we're sending you his way, and learn more about what News on Safaris can do for y'all. Elite Archery is another podcast partner. I've been rocking an Elite bow for many seasons now, and no plans of changing that. I love my Elites. Technology in the archery industry has advanced very quickly, as for any brand out there, really, as you all know. But Elite has taken full advantage of that, and just every year they continue to build somehow a better bow than the year before. So rocked an Omnia last year, absolutely loved it. Went on that Colorado mule deer hunt with it. And then this year I got an Ethos on the way. I'm super excited to get that bow in my hand as well. Looking forward to it. I can keep sitting here and keep talking about Elite Archery and how great they are and how much I love them, but ultimately for you, what's going to make the difference is going to your local Elite dealer and taking the Elite Shootability Challenge and seeing what you think for yourself. Compare them to other bows, compare them to whatever you're shooting now, and make an educated decision. You won't be disappointed. Go check out Elite Archery. The Outdoor Call Radio app is a podcast partner. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV. He created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. You will catch Fall Obsession podcast streaming on that loop on Mondays, the same day as our new publications, as well as tons of other hunting shows and podcasts that we all know and love. So go download the Outdoor Call Radio app today, and go follow Outdoors Dan on social media. He does a couple of different live broadcasts a couple different times a week at local Midwestern radio stations. And even if you're not local to those radio stations, you can still catch those broadcasts shared on his Facebook Live. So Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call Radio app, go check them out. Ridge Rock Hunt Company is another podcast partner. Derek Eves over there in Mississippi. He books hunts with vetted and trusted outfitters across the country. He only books and has outfitters in his network with folks that he knows, trusts, and guarantees a good experience with. So if you're looking for that next adventure with a vetted and trusted outfitter, wanting to book perhaps that once-in-a-lifetime hunt that you've been saving up for, give Derek a call. He'll work with you on the details and find something that works for you. Ridge Rock Hunt Company. Finally, thank you guys again for tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast. If you have not done it already, wherever you are streaming this podcast, if there is an option to like, follow, or subscribe, please click that button. If you can turn on notifications, turn them on. That way you get notified every time we drop a new episode. We publish weekly on Mondays. The podcast videos hit the YouTube channel on Thursdays or Fridays, depending on what we got going on that week. So, and I mean, head on over to the YouTube. We got a ton of awesome content on there that you guys can check out. More stuff coming. That's where we release majority of our feature films whenever we put one of those out. If you're not watching our shows, Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset on Carbon TV, you need to be. Those are both whitetail hunting shows. Obviously one from Texas, the other one's in Michigan and Indiana. And a ton of awesome whitetail habitat management tactics and strategies that we share through those shows. So go check them out. Follow us on social media. We're on all the major platforms. And go to fallobsession.com. That's the website. That's the hub. That's where you guys can find all the content filtering through. Everything that we produce runs through the website, so it's the hub for all of it. You can also head on over to the store, pick you up a hat or a shirt, support a small-time hunting brand. But even if you don't like any of our designs, don't want to buy a shirt, don't have the money to spend on something like that right now, the cheapest way that you can support Fall Obsession is by doing what I just said and liking, following, telling all your friends about us. That is the cheapest investment that you can make, and it does help us out a lot, believe it or not. So thank you guys for supporting Fall Obsession. All right, I'm wrapping up the intro, and we're heading on over now to my conversation with Mike Behrens. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go. dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to another Fall Obsession Podcast. I'm Sam, hosting you guys as always. And I'm joined in person this week. My favorite podcasts are always the in-person ones, but I'm back on here with a returning guest to our show, Mike Behrens. Welcome back to Fall Obsession Podcast.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, man. I enjoy recording with you, and I always try whenever I have returning guests to reference the previous episodes that I might have done with those people, but I always forget to research it, right? So I get on here and I hit record and I'm like, oh yeah, I've had them on before and we talked about this, and then I just draw a blank and I can't remember what episodes. But I didn't do that with you. I actually went back and wrote them down because I want to be sure. And this is actually your 7th Fall Obsession podcast to be on, which is pretty cool. Going all the way back to your first one, episode 136, First Year for Everything,
Yep.
Which was not just your debut on the show, but then we were talking about your adventures, your very first year of whitetail hunting in Texas. Yep. So it was a great episode, and then we've had a lot of good ones that have followed that. We have walked the narrow line of not getting too controversial, but still touching some stuff that we normally don't steer too close to on the show. But and then episode 150, one of our quote-unquote filler episodes that we just recorded just cause, about camouflage, ended up being the most listened to podcast on Spotify in 23 for Fall Obsession, that is. So we've done some good ones. Rogan. we were close. We had a little ways to go to get to him, but we're making a dent. But no, the last one we had you on for was 172, Sophomore Slump, talking about year number 2, which all of these episodes I encourage folks to go back and listen to. They're good ones. But as always, we're back on here with a purpose, I feel like, wanting to talk about some specific stuff and not just backyard bow hunting like we have in the past. We're wanting to dive into some larger issues, and you came to me a few weeks ago actually and was like, hey, I'm working on some stuff for another episode. I got some ideas and some thoughts on some stuff that's going on, and as much as everybody likes going out there and enjoying the great outdoors and everything, there's a whole nother battle being fought behind the curtain to basically keep it possible for us to enjoy those rights that you would think shouldn't be too hard for us to have. But
Correct. Yeah, and the one we did last year where we kind of dove into a little bit of that, I mean,
it was a good episode.
It was good, but it was frustrating to read what was going on, and to know that as an individual how little impact you can actually make, but also as a bunch of individuals how powerful that can be.
Exactly.
So, and it's still going on, which is why we're talking about this here.
And it's going to continue to go on, and we've recorded on this show plenty of episodes over time that reflect that, and I'll reference 181, which I recorded with the guys over at Howl for Wildlife, which is a conservation organization that works to advocate at the legislative level in these various states that are fighting battles, and when it comes to wildlife, hunters' rights, all that kind of stuff. There's obviously the Colorado drama going on with mountain lions and wolves, and we'll get to that a little bit later in this podcast, but it's never going to stop. And that was one thing those guys drove home in that podcast, is if you don't pay attention and if you don't care about it happening nationally in other states, perhaps ones that you don't have any interest in hunting or may never hunt in your life, it's only a matter of time before the ripple effect continues to spread. And if people from Texas, for example, aren't paying attention to what's going on in Colorado or Idaho or California and don't care about that, well, then by the time that stuff comes to Texas, there's going to be no outside help for a state like us, or hunters that are in Texas, for example. And that's a general hypothetical, right. I know, but yeah. So the first thing, and we'll put it in 4-wheel drive, as some friends on another podcast told me the other day when I was on their show. They were like, all right, we're putting this conversation in 4-wheel drive, and here we go. And I was like, I kind of like that. That's cool. But we're going to get in the full swing of things and dive in and start with, again, something that I wasn't super aware of until you sent it to me, and that was actually in the state of Kentucky. The Department of Fish and Wildlife have recently prohibited the hunting of wild hogs.
Correct.
And wild hog hunting is something that we are all too familiar with and all too bad at, I feel like. I'm not calling you bad at it, but I'm bad at it. I'll speak for myself.
They have my work schedule, and every time I show up to work on second shift especially, I'll check the cameras around midnight or something, go in the break room, check the camera. Sure enough, they're out there. When I'm on my days off, I can sit out there 24 hours a day for both days and not see a single pig, not hear a single squeal, nothing. Second I go back to work, they're on my feeder.
Yeah, they got a scout or something watching you.
Either that or I stink. So there's something there.
Well, it's interesting to see Kentucky do that, and I've read some articles since you sent me that and kind of trying to get a grasp on what's going on over there. And, their idea was, from what I could gather, they're wanting residents to report sightings of wild hogs instead of hunters shooting them. Now, I believe if you're a landowner in the state of Kentucky, you can still you can still kill pigs, but for your normal resident who goes out there and hunts, whether it's a private lease that they have or public land, whatever it might be.
Even with the carve-outs, they're restrictive on that, on what they will let you do. So, I mean, to the initial drive on this whole thing, and there's some truth to it, but the way they're applying it makes you, it's kind of a head scratcher. Yeah. They say because an educated pig is harder to track or trap, Kentucky is taking steps to prevent hunting feral hogs. Blah, blah, blah. There was a direct quote, basically, an educated pig is harder to track. So by putting pressure on them through hunting, they're saying that we're driving them to be nocturnal. That says a politician who's never hunted pigs in his life.
It's funny because you could argue that with any species of game, period. How many times in Texas do whitetail hunters make a wrong move on a smart buck that they're trying to kill or something like that, and that buck leaves the area or turns nocturnal or adjusts his pattern in a certain way? That's bullcrap. Is what that is.
Well, I mean, like I said, so says the politician or the bureaucrat or whoever that has never hunted pigs in their life.
Right.
That's all it boils down to. You got people making rules who have never done what their rules are affecting.
You have that, and then you have more states, and I keep bringing this up a lot sooner than I wanted to, and I keep saying I'll dive into it later, but you have voter-based decisions now too, which is a group of people now that have never done that, making the decisions on the behalf of the people that do. So, like Colorado, so it...
We can hold it.
We'll hold it again.
We can hold it.
Yeah. So, and the other thing on top of that is, and I didn't get a chance to dive too deep into research on this, but they're wanting residents to report sightings of this. Correct. And they want to put pig population control in the hands of the Fish and Wildlife Department.
Yes. We're the government. We're here to help.
Exactly. And at that point, what's that going to turn into? And as history has proven in other states, it's going to turn into you're now going to be hiring hunters.
Yes. All right.
Okay. Come on with it.
So what they're going to do is, yes, it's Paul Blart, Mall Cop, observe and report, right? Okay, if you're a landowner and you physically see a pig that's ripping up your ground, you can shoot it.
Yeah.
But me, as a landowner across the street, me having a trap set up there, I am now at odds if Texas were to adopt the same set of regulations as Kentucky. I cannot trap them in my backyard anymore. I cannot go out there in a ground blind and wait for them. Day or night, doesn't matter. I cannot be the aggressor, according to what I've read on this. So it is only a defensive posture. I look at it from a military perspective. Like when I was in Afghanistan, hey, all right, you guys are just out here to observe and report. That's it.
Yeah.
Now, maybe if they shoot at you, you can take them out. But other than that, if you see bad guys, they can be waving an ISIS flag or whatever it is. Just let us know, and we'll send somebody in there to schwack them.
Yeah. I think of that, I forget what kind of commercial it was, but there's a bank robbery happening, and the security guard's just standing there chilling.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, do something. He's like, I'm just a security monitor. I'm just here to tell you that there's a
Yes.
bank robbery. There's a bank robbery.
Yeah.
That's what I think
That's
of when I
exactly
think of
what
this
it
thing.
is. So now, and this, I was talking to some guys at work that also hunt too, and we were kind of all gearing up for this, and we were throwing ideas back and forth, and we're pretty stupid, so the conversation got stupid. But anyway,
Don't sell
so
yourself
we
short.
were trying to figure out how to make a bunch of money without having to go to an actual job, which I think pretty much everybody watching this is thinking about too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Everybody does, yeah.
So when you get a bunch of prior service dum-dums together, the ideas get pretty weird. And some of the ideas that we were throwing out, I was like, hey, how about, since Kentucky's banning wild hogs, I know what this is going to turn into. This is going to turn into a government contract situation because, let's face it, 2 game wardens per county, seriously, what are they going to do?
Right.
They can't even handle deer calls.
Exactly.
There's just numbers. There's just too much. So what they're going to do is they're going to have all of these calls. They're going to be inundated with calls now that this is in place. And people are just like, well, I'm not taking a fine for shooting pigs. So now they're going to have all these, what are they, the damage tags, depredation or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're going to have an influx of those. And now they're going to have to gauge, like, how much money is this worth? What's this guy's, wheat field worth that the hogs just tore up? Now he's not going to get any wheat. He's going to have, 2 cuttings of hay or whatever that he's not going to get this year. What's that all worth? And then, of course, as, state governments, federal governments, any type of government will do, they'll cut you short.
Right.
Because you're not a contractor with them. If you're a contractor, they'd pay you twice what it's worth.
Right.
So I think what's going to happen in Kentucky is they're going to get so inundated with these calls, and they're going to have just such a demand for getting these pigs out of there because people aren't going to take fines for it. So the hunting ceases, the population is going to skyrocket even worse than it is now because you're not taking out the breeder boars, especially the breeder sows.
Right.
Which is exactly what I'm after in the backyard. I don't care about the boars. They're finite. Breeder sows, if you let them breed 2-3 times a year, depending on the cycles,
Oh, yeah.
that's a lot of pigs. That's 60 pigs a year if they
It's
hit 3 times a year.
ridiculous. Yeah.
So now all of a sudden breeding is off the charts, and they're going to be even more inundated with this. Now they're going to have more calls, more damage, more money going out. So what are they going to do? They're like, we got to do something about this. But they're not going to admit they were wrong.
Yeah.
So that's going to stay in place. And in turn, what they're going to do, and this is where, the trio of morons at my work, myself included, we decided, hey, why don't we just be hog hunting contractors for Kentucky? Because if they're going to pay X amount for a boar and X amount for a breeding sow, and say you hit 18, 20 of them every couple of weeks, and they're paying out, X amount per pig, that's passive income.
Oh, yeah. No, it's
So you're going to have 50, 100 contracting companies that are out there just setting up traps on behalf of the government, and they're going to be shelling out money. Now, say the numbers are 300 and 500 per. Because like I said, if you're a government contractor, it's twice what it's worth.
right.
So I figure a boar, say it's $300, and a sow is $500, a breeder. Cool. You get 18, and maybe it's a 8-10 split or a 6-12 split for sows to boars. You do the math on that, and if you hit 20-ish pigs a week, you're talking in the vicinity just for a contractor. That's $200,000 a year contract.
Mm-hmm.
How many counties are there in Kentucky, and how much can one contractor cover?
I was going to say, where's that money coming
How
from?
many hundreds of contractors are they going to have to sustain this and actually try to make a dent in this population that they're now allowing to breed unchecked?
And for our listeners that are tuning in that might be new to hunting or unfamiliar with how all this works, that we're not spitballing stuff just out of the blue. This is stuff that over the course of years we've seen happen with various states throughout America from time to time, whatever the species might be, big or small, dense populations or smaller, whatever it might be. This is what it's gonna come to most likely.
And it's also regardless of subject too. You can
True.
interchange hunting with, government contracting.
Oh,
overseas.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's all the same thing.
It's the same, yeah.
But it's all about but the problem is most of these contractors are going to have some sort of tie to either a state or a local official.
Yeah.
And therein lies the problem. So unless you're rubbing elbows with people, good luck getting a contract in Kentucky. That's just how it goes.
So, and this is just where we drive home, and of course we're talking about this on our show, and people might ask or think, well, what can I do about that, or what are you going to do about that? What am I going to sit here in front of this microphone going to do about it instead of just talking about what's about to happen? And again, that's where, if you are a resident, this is closer to home for you, if this does impact you, you have to go through the channels of your local government, local legislation to try and advocate for it. If there are local organizations that are working to, provide some resolutions or some insight at a higher level with this kind of thing, get plugged in with them. There's organizations we already I think mentioned the Howl for Wildlife is one example, but there's organizations like that advocate for stuff like this and work on stuff like this at a much higher level. So it's not something where we necessarily have to just lay over and just complain about it, and that's not what we're trying to do here. But it is for those that can have a voice or that want to have a voice or who didn't know they had a voice, you actually do, and it's important to have that voice heard.
Right. Now, one of the problems, and to finish off my rant from earlier, you talk about all that money, how many hundreds of contractors are they going to have to cover the entire state of Kentucky? And more specifically, the land between the lakes, which is always being talked about in all these articles that I'm reading about it. And the locals know, you guys know what I'm talking about, land between the lakes. You guys are familiar with it. I have no idea what it looks like, obviously, being in Texas and Iowa and stuff my whole life. But at any rate, how many contractors do we have to have at what cost? And the question you asked is perfect. Who's paying for it?
Right. Who
We know.
We know who's paying for it. Who do y'all think's paying for it?
So taxes are going to go up.
Yeah.
Property taxes go up to pay for the inability of property owners to control their herds of pigs. You take the teeth out of the wolf, and what happens?
Yeah.
So
and you're now cutting into, on top of that, taxes are going up, but then how much is that going to impact, obviously, the resources of your Fish and Wildlife Department and other things that they are doing that's productive from a conservation standpoint, that now their budgets are going to become constrained in other areas potentially to make up for it.
Just something, answering calls. How much fuel do these guys use a week answering calls? And now you're going to, quadruple, if not, exponentially increase that? They're never going to stop. And at $3.50 a gallon or whatever it is in Kentucky, I mean, where we're at, 3, right? Here?
Yeah.
California's at like 5.5, 6. I don't know what Kentucky is, but I mean, it's somewhere in there. So you've got that, and yeah, governments, they contract at a lower cost and stuff like that, tax exemptions and whatever, but still, just look at fuel cost alone. That's going to drive up taxes. I mean, that was a limiting factor when I was a police officer. It's like, hey, we need to stop putting so many miles on the cars because our fuel budget's blowing up. Okay.
I will chase less crime.
Right. How do you want me to accomplish that one, fella? It's a nice thing on a spreadsheet, but when you try and put it into practice, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So now you're looking at, just doing the quick math on it that I did at work, you're looking at $20 million, $30 million increase that they're going to have in increased revenue to cover this. So, question to Kentuckians, when this stuff falls this way, are you going to be able to handle $30 million of increased revenue? And that's being very conservative, because any budget proposition is not going to be, hey, this is only what we need. Well, here's what we need, plus, we're going to tie in all this stuff. So it's actually about, I don't know, $750 million. That's what it always ends up. You need a nickel, but they give you $20.
Right.
So how's that going to be covered by the citizens? And that's a thing that's going to happen all over the place. I mean, Colorado is another example. We'll probably get to that, but that's going to cost money. All those things up there cost money. The damage and all these things that, the ranchers with their cattle, all that stuff, it's all going to cost money. Who's covering it? And at what cost? And who's going to be enforcing or, being the security blanket, the protectors? Who's going out there and taking care of this stuff and running the security if you're not going to allow the ranchers to do it?
Yeah. Again, you can look at whatever state you want to pull up that has had other issues or similar issues, restrictions, new bans on hunting, whatever it might be. And as history shows, there might be a tax difference on everybody for the state as far as population goes, but then your hunting licenses go up. In Colorado's sense, you start cutting other tags because even though you might not blatantly admit it, that these lions, for example, are going to start killing your wildlife. They're going to kill your deer and your elk. So, now we can't let as many hunters kill deer and elk, so we got to cut tags. Well, now we got to increase the price of everybody else's tags to make up for the money that we're losing on this. So, yeah, I digress a little bit, but I mean,
it's a rabbit hole that you fall into, but it's a necessary one. I mean, that's like we were talking at work. I mean, we didn't come to work intending to talk about killing hogs and making a contract,
making money off of it.
But here we are, Granted, I mean, pipe dream. There's nobody in Kentucky who's going to take some stranger from Texas and be like, yeah, sure, you can have a government contract to hunt pigs over here.
Yeah,
4 states away.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, but it was a fun conversation. But yeah, I mean, in the end, what this is not even a law.
No, and that was the interesting thing that I was looking at, because I was trying to, I was just skimming through stuff and everything, and I had that light bulb moment at one point, like there's no state law that has been passed for this. This is simply the Fish and Wildlife Department putting a restriction or a prohibition. Is that the right word? Am I using good English on that? Regulation,
whatever.
Restriction, prohibiting. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not good at the English language. I'm sorry. But
You speak firefighter, I speak infantry.
Yeah, exactly. I talk good.
I know words.
I know words.
Yes, so it's not even a law. And, if it's not really codified into law, and this entity that made this regulation, which would be akin to our Texas Parks and Wildlife, there's caveats to this, so don't get all like, oh man, I'm not going to follow these. No, you still have to. A regulation made by a government agency, we also know them as bureaucrats, has zero teeth, especially now with a certain Supreme Court statute or Supreme Court decision that was just made a couple weeks ago, knocking down Chevron. Okay, and that was for federal, doesn't apply to states, but give it time, it will. So basically what that whole thing said was a government agency cannot set and enforce fees for something unless it's codified into law. That's really the nuts and bolts as I understand it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm infantry. I'm not smart. But as I understand it, that's kind of what the deal is.
Yeah.
So the boaters, or not the boaters, but the fishermen were getting taxed like $600-700 per day on a day rate. And they're like, this is crap. Because it was NOAA that was doing it. Well, they didn't have the legal authority. They weren't codified into law to be able to do that. That's why it got struck down.
Yeah.
So it was another poor decision by the Supreme Court 30, 40 years ago that put a policy in place, a legal precedent in place
Yep.
that had no business being there because it was not constitutionally justified. So now, Supreme Court today knocks that down. Matter of time before it starts getting applied in the appellate and state courts and stuff like that, and they start applying Chevron. So, at any rate, that's whatever. That's going to be a problem for somebody else on another day. But to apply the same logic, you've got a bureaucrat or a series of bureaucrats in Kentucky that have now made a regulation, and I'm just making the assumption that they've never hunted these things in their life, which may or may not be true, but makes me feel good. Because nobody who's hunted these things would actually say something like that and enact something like this.
Yeah.
And I'm not by any means an expert on them. I am quite terrible at hunting feral pigs. And I still get them on occasion, but man, they're hard.
It's because you're pushing them and turning them nocturnal.
That's right. I'm educating them.
You're
I'm
educating
making them
them.
smart. I'm putting them through the school of hard shots. So these bureaucrats make these rules. Now, if they are not codified into law as having the authority to do that, like Texas does, Texas has codified into law that the Parks and Wildlife Commission has full authority to do a laundry list of things,
Right.
including set fees.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an actual state law that you can look up. We've got technically we can't complain about it here. And here's the real head scratcher. This is what I was telling you about before, to kind of jump off the Kentucky thing. Me personally, I think this is one of the worst written laws ever. It essentially says that the fee for a license in the state of Texas shall be $12, or an amount deemed appropriate, or whatever the wording is by the commission. Whichever's higher.
Whichever's higher.
And that's a law.
The last time I paid $12 for a license.
So, Kentuckians, have a look at your state code. And like we have the Texas Administrative Code here, Secretary of State. That stuff should be on there. Kentucky has a Secretary of State. Go look on the website. Find all these things. Sit there and read. I had a little bit of extra time at work, obviously, and we were checking some things out, and I looked through and I found a couple of them. I printed them. Of course, I don't have them today because I'm smart like that. But I printed them off because I knew I wouldn't be able to find them again, and I was right.
Yeah.
Because I can't find them again.
Print them off, left them in the other car. Google search and nothing.
But it literally says that. It's codified into law that our elected officials, the people that we can hold accountable, have handed off that authority to people we cannot hold accountable. That's a problem for me.
Yeah.
And that should be a huge problem for the state of Kentucky, too. Because now all these guys that own land, and girls that own land, and it's getting torn up, and they have no choice but to let it happen unless they physically seeing it going on. They have no recourse now. Unless this is a bureaucratic agency overstepping its legal authority.
Right.
And if they're not overstepping their legal authority, now you need to start looking at your elected officials and be like, hey guy, what are we doing about this? Are we going to go ahead and change this? Are we going to put something in the law here? We're going to maybe take back a little bit of power, because I can't call them up and, they're not accountable to me.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with the state of Texas. We have no recourse but to go to our elected officials and be like, hey, you gave them too much power. You need to take it back. And this needs to be codified into law a different way, because they have too much say, too much power, too much, you basically just punted. And you just kick the responsibility to somebody else because you don't want to deal with it. So just make a law saying, hey, it's your problem now.
Yeah.
And now we, as individuals, have no control over that. We cannot hold anybody accountable. And most of these state agencies now, look at the DMV. I tried to make an appointment at the DMV for 3 hours on their website. That doesn't work. 3 hours. Now I tried to call. You know what happened? I found this out when I drove up to Decatur. She told me that, oh yeah, you can't call in anymore. They reroute you in a circle down in Austin. They took that away from us.
Oh.
So you can't even call into the DMV anymore. Okay? Who can I hold accountable for that? You know, like I said, it's not specific to hunting. It's about, you can interchange any single subject that you want
Right.
that deals with a 3-letter government agency, and it's all going to be the same thing.
Right.
They have too much power because it's been punted. The elected officials don't want the responsibility. Well, if you don't want the responsibility, get out of office. Let somebody else do it.
Yeah. Well, not to make it 100% political.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. Not to make it 100% political, but this is the importance of, again, we're talking about subjects related to hunting and conservation and everything, but to your point, everything in life, local government's important. No matter, and I'm not here to talk about what your opinions are on which side of the fence you're on or anything like that.
Nobody cares about that.
Yeah, that doesn't matter to me. But local government's important, and that's where you should make it a priority to have your voice heard.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
And I'll leave it at that. And especially as hunters, we need to pay attention to what's going on in our states. On that note, shifting over to our beloved great state of Texas down here. We have a new regulation in place.
Made by bureaucrats.
And the very first regulation in the state of Texas pertinent to mountain lions.
Correct.
Up until now, and I guess in some regard it still is, in the state of Texas, you can hunt or trap mountain lions at any time of the year with no limits and no tags. That is legal. What Texas has done is they have now put a regulation on mountain lion trapping, saying that if you are trapping mountain lions, you can't have them in the trap for more than 36 hours.
Right.
And this is a regulation that I do not disagree with.
Oh, I absolutely agree with it.
Yeah.
To me, it's common sense and it's ethical.
Absolutely. And yeah,
If you're leaving a cat in a trap, any animal in a trap for 3, 4, 5 days,
it's unethical.
yeah, I have some feelings
Yeah.
on that. Like, even feral pigs. Second I saw one in the trap, I'm out there on the 4-wheeler.
You bring that up. It's interesting. I know a guy, I haven't connected with him in a while now, but he lives in Florida. And it's funny. He works for the state, and one of his jobs is killing wild hogs.
Yeah.
A little sidebar on that.
He's the guy. He's the contractor.
But he was in Texas at one point in time a few years ago, and we met up for lunch while he was just passing through on his way to the airport. And I asked him, I was like, how do you get so many pigs? Right? And he told me, he's like, well, I have a lot of traps out. He goes, the pictures I send you are only the big ones. He's like, I trap and shoot so many pigs. He's like, but I trap a lot. I was like, but you're in Texas right now. And he said in Florida that he was required to, if he traps, he has, cameras on all his traps. And he said, I'm required to be there within 24 hours if I trap a pig. Same deal.
Absolutely. It's just common sense ethics. I mean, what kind of a dirtbag are you if you're leaving an animal in a cage for 4 or 5 days, especially in the middle of summer, like right now, 100 degrees?
Come on, man.
Like I said, I have feelings on that one.
Yeah.
For anybody that were to do that, if I saw it, there would be words.
No, this is a good regulation in my opinion. It is ethical, and there's that line right between being restrictive and limiting a hunter and outdoorsman's rights and being ethical with your restrictions, because as many people as are out there and are ethical hunters and responsible, you also have those that give us a bad name, the rednecks who just, if it's brown it's down, and they don't really give a crap about any piece or part of it. They're just there to kill. Not trying to stereotype rednecks there. I'm a redneck in some regards too. So it's
very red.
Yeah, exactly. I was working on that water pump this morning, but it's not to stereotype in that regard, but there are people, we all know it, that give hunting a bad name.
Yeah.
And there has to be some regulation and limitations to prevent that from being the worst that it can be,
or,
I guess
or
I should
don't
say.
restrict us from taking care of it ourselves.
Yeah, but that's another conversation.
Might lead to some problems. So the other thing that this regulation does is it also bans canned hunts.
Yeah.
So we can't tie a kitty to a tree and be like, all right, there's one. Oh my God, he's coming right for us.
Yeah. Take
Yeah,
a
that-
guy
yeah,
on a
you can't
mountain
do that
lion hunt
anymore.
because he never killed one. Yeah.
So either one of those two things, if you're doing that, you're not a hunter or a trapper.
Yeah.
You're fill in whatever word you want to put, but you know what I'm thinking.
Yeah. It's you got to be smart about it, and this, again, like I've already said multiple times now, this is a good one. This is one that is responsible and serves a good purpose. Obviously, everybody's a little bit edgy hearing about it just because of what's going on in Colorado right now, and the fact that in November they have a vote going to their ballot for a mountain lion hunting ban in the entire state. And we already saw how that worked out with wolves for the reintroduction of wolves into Colorado.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It'll be fine.
So that, I mean, because of that, it gets, people get a little weary of it. And I'm not telling people to let their guard down, because it is possible that this leads to other things, right? It turns into a mountain lion, and honestly, I would not be surprised if within the next few years Texas has a mountain lion hunting season and there are tags.
It will. It'll mirror bobcat. You'll have to have a hunting license to do it. It won't be a non-game animal anymore. Yeah. And it'll be September 1st through August 31st of the next year.
Yeah. So and fun fact, since you brought it up in regard to bobcats in Texas, to your point, exactly what you just said, you have to be a licensed hunter. Mm-hmm. And the season is a full year. It's year round. But those dates are specified. And what's going to happen if certain people are making certain decisions? Those dates are all of a sudden just one day going to be shortened. And now there's a fall season or a spring season or whatever they come up with. And then from there, that's where the restrictions start getting obviously more limiting.
And this leads into why I preface this whole thing made by a bureaucrat. These regulations are made by a bureaucrat because Texas elected officials punted this responsibility to a commission because they didn't want to deal with it.
Right.
Now, I understand they can't deal with everything every day. There's got to be some. But you can also codify some sort of a recourse for us as citizens to come back. And that's one thing that's missing. So, like I said here, this is not a bad thing. I totally agree with it. However, it was a unanimous vote by the 11 commissioners. Okay, so 11 people are making choices and decisions and regulations. 11 people for every hunter in the state of Texas. Do you know any of those 11 people on the commission?
Not personally.
I sure don't.
I
don't even know what their names are. Didn't even know there was a commission, to be honest with you. I mean, who does?
Right.
Unless you really dive into it. I know now, and everybody who listens to this knows.
Right.
But if you're out there and you get your first deer license or deer tags or whatever first time, like this was me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's me. I mean, everybody's like, well, ignorance of the law isn't an excuse. Well, I mean, here's the thing about laws.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be clear, concise, and easily understood, and easily enforceable. Have you read a law lately?
It does not necessarily always fall under the description you just gave. I will say that.
So it's supposed to be understood
easily
by the average person. If I go in and I read, Title 31, let's see, where are we at here? Go back one more time here.
We're if y'all are tuning into the podcast video, you'll see we're prepared today. We got the setup going with the computers and the laptops here, and got the internets, the hamsters running out here in the country for the internets and getting everything all fired up. So
for the law that's supposed to be clear, concise, easily understood by the average person, and easily enforceable. Okay? Title 31, Part 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 chapters. Chapter 65 is wildlife. A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J, K, N, O, P, Q, T, U, V, and W
Alphabet
are the
soup.
subchapters.
Alphabet soup.
Yeah, there's a few ones missing. So if we go into, let's just say subchapter C. There's 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 107, 109, 111, 13, 15, 16, 17, 19.
Y'all get the picture.
Who is going to know all of this stuff their first year hunting? You need to go be a legal scholar just to adhere to the ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
Yeah.
I hear that, and this is, I mean, tell me you haven't heard a cop say that before. I was a cop, and I think I've said it, but it was like speeding.
Right.
Okay. If you don't know what the speed limit is, there's white and black signs posted everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, ignorance of that is not an excuse, obviously. So I've said that phrase before, but in a very applicable way. But for some obscure urban whitetail deer removal permit, well, you didn't know about that? Ignorance of that is not an excuse. Here's your citation.
Right.
Give me a break.
Come on, man.
So this is what I'm talking about. Like, there's all these rules and stuff that are getting put in place by bureaucrats that we have no control over. We have no recourse on. Now, a lot of them we don't disagree with. I'm good with bag limits so we don't overhunt. I'm good with not leaving, cats, pigs, whatever. I don't care what it is, leaving something in a trap for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days.
Right.
I'm good with all that. A lot of stuff I don't have a problem with. But let's give us some kind of a recourse here so when they start overstepping and they're like, yeah, well, we're going to go ahead and shorten that to 9 months now. Why? Now I got to check my calendar if I see, Bigfoot out there with his pointy ears and sharp teeth.
Right.
I mean, come on.
And I want to say this too, because I know that there are a lot of newer hunters that do listen to this show at times. I don't want y'all to hear this and get intimidated, right? I don't want it to scare people from
just do the right thing.
From going and getting your hunting license and going out there and hunting, because just like you said 3 years ago, you knew that you needed a deer tag to kill a deer in Texas, and you need to be a licensed hunter, so you went and bought a hunting license, and you were good to go, right? I want to encourage people to get in the outdoors and to hunt. That's what's the most important thing, and that's the ultimate reason that all of this stuff should be there, is to allow us the conservation efforts that are necessary to sustain hunting and outdoor life for the foreseeable future. So take advantage of it and get out there. Don't feel like you got to read through every word and remember every word on all this stuff, because you're not going to. Neither of us sitting here have ever done that or know it either. But
I look it up and I look at it and I'm just like, this is so stupid.
Exactly. But it goes back to doing the right thing, like you said, being ethical with your hunting, with your trapping, with all of your efforts out there, because that's what makes a good hunter. And as we've talked about earlier in this episode, when the time is there for you to have your voice heard at a higher level with your local officials, whether that's reaching out to their offices directly, or whether that's in Colorado right now voting, for crying out loud. Educate yourself. That's when you educate yourself on, okay, who's making these decisions? What are the other impacts that this is going to have? That's where you need to do your research. That's where you need to understand everything, because if you want your voice heard, then make sure you're educated on the subject. And I may sound hypocritical on that because I'm over here talking about these things, and for all I know, y'all may think I'm blowing smoke up your butt, but I like to think that I spend a little bit of time looking at this stuff before we hit record. But
well, and another thing too, I mean, they need to do something to where this stuff's easier to find too. Because, I mean, I was doing an active dive into this stuff. And some of this stuff was, I mean, like, you can't find it.
Oh, the research you have done, like, you've gone even farther, than I have with this stuff. Because, like I said at the beginning, you came to me weeks ago with the idea to have an episode over these things. And I think I texted you a week or two ago. It was like, hey, you want to record this week? And you're like, no, I need more time.
Yeah,
I know that comes down
sidetracked.
to personal schedules and, you know, what you're able to put into it. But I bring that up to say, like, this isn't just us. Oh, hey, what are we going to talk about tonight? Oh, let's
No,
talk
that was
about
last
that.
year.
That was last year. That was these other 6 episodes
Yeah.
we talked about
Yeah,
at
I
the
was
beginning.
like, hey man, you want to record? Yeah, that's cool.
Let's talk about camouflage. But no, I bring that up just to drive home the point that we try to put some research and some thought into this before we just dive on here and talk to the whole world where everybody can hear us. Because it's important. We care about it. That's why we're bringing it up. Not for a political stance of any kind on the show. If you want to talk politics, I'll give you our phone numbers and we'll talk about it one-on-one. But you know, it just, this is the stuff that's important for the whole hunting community to understand.
Yeah.
And to have a little bit more buy-in, perhaps.
The buy-in, yeah, that's accurately put, because there's a lot of hunters who they'll zero problem going out there August 15th or whatever your state day is,
Right.
going and getting a hunting license. But come that fateful day in November when the election day is taking place, they ain't coming out of their deer blind.
True.
And depending on the figures that you're hearing, like I looked for days to try and figure out where this data came from. I know it's out there, but it ranges. Some say 10 million hunters in the country have a hunting license, do not vote.
Mm-hmm.
Do not even have a registration to vote, are not registered. Some are saying it's upwards of 20 to 25 million. That is a lot of people.
The low number is an insane amount of people.
Right.
That is a shift in a country's. That's a kind of number that backs up a shift in a country's leadership.
Huge difference.
Yes.
So there is data out there. Like, I mean, where I got the information from, the source I got it from, you know, if you Google podcasts in Texas, I'm sure you'll come across it. No free ads, so they're not getting a bump.
You got to pay to be on this show.
They wouldn't answer my Facebook message, so I'm not going to give their name out. But anyway, the guy that goes through all this, their number cruncher, I mean, the dude, he's very intelligent.
Right.
And he knows a lot of people in a lot of areas. I mean, he's got contacts in the Border Patrol. He's got contacts all over the, you know, CIA and all these different government agencies. He's got friends everywhere. Yeah. So he knows what's going on the ground level. And when he's going through and he's saying, hey, these are the statistics on this. And there are this many people. I think it was Missouri. It was the one that I remember. It was like 258,000 hunters in Missouri have a hunting license and are not registered to vote. I don't know exactly what that number was, but it was somewhere around 250,000 just in the state of Missouri.
I'm curious now.
So, yeah, good luck, because I did the same thing.
Well, no, you said 250,000. I'm just curious on what the population of a state like Missouri is.
Oh, it was enough to sway any race
6.1 million in 2022 in Missouri.
Unless it was a straight up landslide, that those numbers are enough to sway any election.
Well, yeah, I mean, and again, we're flirting with that line we always flirt with on politics on the show, but you know, you look at just how many people vote. I'll compare it to a local level. How about that? Because the city that I work for as a firefighter, for example, it has a little over 81,000 people that live there, and we just had this past spring our local elections for city council and mayor and all that kind of stuff, and the people that sit in those seats, right, they impact not just the, you know, taxes and the well-being of the residents and everything, but they also have what we pay attention to the most, obviously, is fire and police. Mm-hmm. You know, how where's their stance on that kind of stuff, because that's our world. Out of a little over 81,000 residents, maybe 10,000 voted.
Yep.
Maybe.
A fraction.
And it's like, holy cow, there's literally just an eighth of the people that live here that are making all of the determinations on the town's future and leadership.
Right.
Small scale, right? Blow it up however big you want to get. But
well, and that's why everybody was shocked in what was it, 2020, when we had 161 million people either factually or allegedly show up to vote, depending where your stance is on things. But whatever, that's the number, 181 million people, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's the biggest turnout ever. That shouldn't be the case. That should be average.
Yeah, we need that. That should be a turnout every time.
Right.
Exactly. No, I get it. And then you look at like Texas. I mean, Missouri has what, 6.1 million, and then you look at Texas and got over 30 million people in Texas, and how many of those are hunters?
Take out 18 and younger because census does include kids and
Correct.
everything too. But yeah, you got to take all that out. But yeah, that's a lot of people. And when you start chopping away segments of that population due to age, now you're looking at an even bigger percentage of this number affecting the percentage of people who voted and how much strength there are in those numbers. So, you know, going back to these things, it's like my major issue is not the fact that they're putting regulations on mountain lions in the state of Texas. My issue is that I can't vote these clowns out of office if they do something that I don't like. I can't hold them accountable because they are appointed. That should be a problem for every single person.
Yeah, it's and what do you do about it?
You gotta get new elected officials.
Exactly.
And you can't do that from a deer blind.
True.
So I guess the 10 to 25 million, depending on whose numbers you're looking at and which one's actually accurate, you can take a day off in November. It's fine. The deer will still be there the next day.
So I will end the political push on Fall Obsession podcast with this encouragement. No matter where you stand on things, no matter what you care about, federal or local elections, whatever the case might be, in November, either vote early, because you can do that, vote early, or take a morning off from hunting, whatever it might be, because it matters in the long run.
It does.
100%.
And it's not, I mean, let's be real. President of the United States, it doesn't affect me on the daily at all.
Correct.
But what does affect me on the daily, especially during season, is these 11 dudes on the Wildlife Commission. They affect me on the daily.
Yeah. Pay attention to what's going on in your state with hunting and wildlife regulations, conservation efforts, all that kind of stuff, because again, we've talked about Kentucky, we keep tiptoeing around Colorado, we've talked about the mountain lion restriction in Texas, which again is a good thing right now. Pay attention, because as history has proven, what starts in just a simple, hey, you can't have a cat in your trap for more than 36 hours, it can progress a lot farther if nobody pays it any mind.
Yeah, now you've only got 2 weeks in the middle of deer season to hunt mountain lions.
And then when does it trickle over to other species, right?
Exactly.
When does the mountain lion population increase in Texas because nobody's hunting them as much, and now they're impacting your whitetail populations and your pig populations, and now we have a hunting season for pigs, and now we get fewer deer tags every year, and whatever the case might be. That's the trickle-down effect, right? That's the worst-case scenario in Texas in a nutshell. And you look at Colorado, you look at the wolf reintroduction, which they just released them last winter. That was when they brought them back, and how much in already now we're looking at the first hunting season, and I'm not the expert on Colorado. I'm a Texas boy. I got guys on the team that know stuff about Colorado, but how it has already impacted the tags that you're seeing. You look at Colorado a trend over the past several years, there's fewer and fewer tags. Before the 24-25 book came out this past April, Colorado residents were worried that they were going to do away with over-the-counter tags altogether. I talked to several people that hunt Colorado or that live there, and that was a concern. Like, they might go this far, and they didn't, not yet. But there's so, like, where does it end, you know? And where's it going to trend? Because now we've reintroduced wolves. In November in Colorado, the entire state, the same state that just voted to bring back wolves with no hunting or trapping regulations on wolves at all, period. And in fact, they were blatantly clear, do not shoot these things. You will be severely punished if you kill a wolf. Now they're wanting to do that with lions. So now you're going to have two very aggressive predators in their natural environment that are greatly impacting
The wolves
hunting.
are not in their natural environment.
Yes, I stand
Those
corrected.
are actually the incorrect species of wolves that are not native to that area.
Yeah.
But the point
In
is,
the wilderness.
you've got some pretty significant, very highly skilled and motivated predators
Yes.
that are now 100% protected.
Yes.
What are you supposed to do?
Right. And it's all, if you don't care about it, if you live in the city and maybe you get an opportunity, you get a tag every once in a while, or you just like to go fishing or whatever it might be, and I keep following those little rabbit trails that you keep talking about and everything. But on that note too, I will say I am not a big fisherman personally. I'll wet a line every now and then. I'm born and raised a hunter, and that's where my love lies. But for those that are avid fishermen and that don't really care so much about hunting, this is relevant to y'all too. Not just from the standpoint of, oh, what if you go to Colorado and a wolf shows up when you're fishing off the bank? No, I'm not talking about that. It's all on the same plate. Fishing, hunting, the
ecosystem
outdoors,
issue.
it's all on the same plate. And I can't speak educatively, that's probably not a word either, I can't speak to that well at all in regards to fishing regulations or bans or restrictions and stuff. But if they're coming for hunting, they're going to come for fishing too. And if
And
you
that's
are
historical.
exactly, if you are just purely a fisherman and you don't care about hunting, I encourage you to pay attention. Because just like, you know, if it's going on in another state, it could ripple effect to your state. If it's hunting in your state, it'll ripple effect to fishing in one way or another.
And it goes back to how many licensed hunters, licensed fishermen are not registered to vote. And if you don't like what's happening, especially in a state like Colorado, and you've got a hunting license and you didn't register to vote, or you're registered to vote but you didn't vote, hey man, I mean, not to point fingers, but you could have done something about that. You and, however many tens or hundreds of thousands of other people who did the same thing.
Look up the number on the wolf vote too. Like, it passed to reintroduce wolves, but it barely passed.
Right.
It barely passed. And I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it was like 51 to 49, or like it was that close, right? That's sad.
And that was an issue that was voted on a line item, right? That wasn't like
Yes.
gone through the political side and representatives. That was a line item vote, right?
I believe so. And if I'm misspeaking, I apologize, but
So especially if it was a line item vote on a ballot and it passed that close, like literally everybody who's against it, who didn't vote for their, whatever side, they should be kicking themselves right now because they could have influenced that outcome.
yeah, and that's the point that I'm trying to make, right? Is I hope that would be a wake-up call, because 51%, the majority that carried that vote, are, in my opinion, uneducated, a majority probably non-hunters that live in the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
That, oh, wolves used to be here, they're not here now, we can bring them back, it's wildlife, I like wildlife, oh, that sounds cool, let's do it. Simple as that, right? And I know I'm summarizing, but my hope is that simple issue will have made a lot of people pay attention. It will have woken up a lot of hunters across the country, or in that state specifically, to where now we roll around in November when the mountain lion item is on the ballot. Okay, everybody's paying attention.
Yeah.
We're not going to let this thing do this again.
Yeah, and it's becoming a thing too. I got a friend up in Colorado. He just moved there last year, and he's just like, I can't even hunt this year.
Yeah. No, man. I mean, and I know Colorado's just their draw system and everything is more complex than some other states, and that's not a knock on them. I understand that it's also a destination state for hunting, for more so than a lot of other states are. So you have to take that into account and everything. And any state that's like that, Colorado, the whole Rocky Mountain range, and those big western hunting states, whatever it might be, yeah, they got to have the draw applications. That's a much more competitive system to get a tag, whereas down here in Texas, you don't even have to, if you're hunting pigs on private property, you don't have to even be a licensed hunter, so for now
until 11 people decide to change that.
Right. But
so, and that's the point is, whether you're living in Colorado, Kentucky, Iowa, Texas, Florida, who cares? You have to at least know if your wildlife agency, know how they're run. Like, I didn't know that we had a commission.
Right.
Because I don't even know if Iowa has a commission, and I grew up there. I don't know. But just know that. Know the basics. Okay, we've got a wildlife commission. They are able to set fees legally and do all that stuff here in Texas. Okay, cool. I can't complain about that. So yeah, I mean, the only recourse we have in Texas is obviously elected officials. But I mean, know the basics about how your bureaucracy works in your state. And I'm not saying you have to obviously do a deep dive or anything like that, but just know how it operates. I mean, for Colorado, who's making this? I mean, yeah, the wolf thing was a vote, obviously, so that's pretty cut and dried. But like their draw system and regulations changes and all that stuff, like look at what grants them the authority to do that, and to see if they're exceeding said authority.
Right. Or
if you don't like what they're doing with their authority, then challenge their authority through your elected officials. And those are things that. And here's the thing, like, this is one of the experiences I had here in Texas. I called my elected official, and I wasn't good enough to return a phone call.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, there ain't that many people in this district that you can't respond to a phone call.
Right.
Because one of the candidates in one of the races, he didn't have a problem returning the phone call.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Exactly.
Who needs to be in there and who doesn't? If you can't pick up the phone or have one of your staffers pick up the phone and return phone calls, you don't need to be in office, period. Because you just basically told me that I'm not good enough for your time. But hey, let me get your vote come November.
So I can make all the decisions.
Right.
Exactly.
So guys like that need to go. And that's the whole thing. Start putting pressure on the elected officials. Seems familiar, like we said this last year too.
Yeah. Episode 149 is that other conservation episode that we did. I don't know that we got quite as political as we did in this one, but and I did want to bring up too, I looked it up here so I can tell you accurately, is in regards to Colorado, the stuff that's going on there specifically. Again, I'm from Texas. I'm not the most educated guy on what's going on there. I support organizations like Howl for Wildlife that are making an impact in those fights, that are doing some good work. But podcast episodes that have been on our show, at least episode 181 is I recorded with the guys at Howl Wildlife talking about this kind of stuff. That's a great one to go listen to. And then also episode 177 with our Western coordinator, Tim, who is a Colorado resident. That was more centered around the Colorado. He does it every year where he talks about the, what's new for the Colorado big game regulations and everything. We recorded that episode back in April. But this year had a little bit more information in it, given what's been going on. So those are two good podcasts to go listen to if you're interested in hearing from more educated people on the matter than myself. So.
Yeah, and there's always somebody out there who knows more. Just ask questions, and I mean, it seems like I'm kind of dogging on stuff, but like a lot of the decisions, I I like. I mean, I fully support bag limits, and yeah, absolutely, game wardens go out there and get rid of the dirtbag poachers and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I'm cool with that, but there's still got to be a check and balance on the bureaucracy that we have within our government. There has to be a check on that, and this is one of those things where, yeah, they had some conversations about it. I don't know what the conversations look like in Kentucky, if they even had one, but I'm assuming they did. I mean, nobody's just going to go in and be like, all right, today we're going to ban hog hunting because I have a theory. That's not how they do it.
Oh, my word.
They had a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm looking at an article right now. It's pretty well written, and it's got a lot of different quotes from a lot of different people who were at the meeting with the commissioners or in contact with commissioners and stuff like that. And great. And I don't disagree with any of it. But again, there's got to be a check on it, because eventually, no matter how good this commission is, they're going to do something wrong. And we have to have the ability as citizens to have recourse against that. It was written somewhere in some kind of an important document in our history. I can't put my finger on it. I'll have to Google it.
Dang.
Anyway.
Yeah, good thing for Google, huh?
Yeah. So, yeah, but other than that, I mean, pretty slow news day.
Yeah.
Slow news day. Did you hear Richard Simmons died?
I did not.
Yeah, fitness guru. Sad day. And it was Krispy Kreme's birthday the other day.
Krispy Kreme's birthday.
Other than that, not much in the news.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Well, man, before we call it an episode, we've been sitting here in front of this camera for over an hour now, talking with this blade displayed on the table in front of us.
Yeah, I wonder if anybody noticed it.
I don't know. They might have turned us off after about 4 minutes, or they might have been just so tuned into the red, white, and blue cowboy hat that you're wearing.
I probably kept their attention right here, right up in here.
Yeah, tell us about what we got here.
So that is my. I didn't make that knife. So
I know, but it's here for a reason.
Yeah. So what I did is I did the handle on it, and that was actually a gift, wedding present to a friend of mine. And that particular blade cut that I got for him, it kind of fits his personality. He's a little bit of a cowboy, a little bit of a history buff, gun nut. He's kind of he's a nerd in a bunch of different areas.
Aren't we all?
And he worked at our favorite box store, Cabela's, for a while. I think it was firearms inventory, and he ran like that, that back room with the super expensive guns and the antiques and stuff. I think that was his wheelhouse.
I got you.
So, like I said, I mean, he's a nerd in a lot of different areas, but he didn't have like some super nice kind of, wicked type knife like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
So I got the blade, and I did a little bit of research, because I'm pretty much a blacksmith. I mean, I watched every season of Forged in Fire, so pretty much can do anything.
Yeah, I got your online degree.
Yeah, that's right.
In blacksmithing.
That's right. So I was like, all right, well, based on what they talked about on that show, which, I mean, again, you learn something when you watch shows like that. And it's like, all right, what are they talking about here? So I looked at the different steels that are in there, and the overall hardness of the blade, and how it compares to, like, kitchen knives. Like, everybody knows how hard a kitchen knife is, or like their buck knife or whatever. So I wanted to see how hard this steel was before I paid for the blade, and it's pretty hard.
It's pretty hard.
It's pretty hard. So I'm like, all right, well, that's a good thing. The only thing that I didn't know, the unknown, was tempering and heat treat and stuff like that. But you're gonna find out first time you have to stab a wild pig, because you can't hunt them anymore.
I thought you scared them all off, and they're all nocturnal.
Well, that's true.
now.
That's true. Yeah. That whole education process. So this thing is a super hard blade, relatively speaking. Damascus is soft and hard metals that are folded over and stuff like that. So there is soft metal in there, obviously, but the overall hardness is pretty hard. Sharpened up like a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing it sliced right through paper. So
That's awesome.
It's a good blade. Obviously it hasn't been under any test because I did talk to him and I was like, hey, did you use it yet? And he's like, yeah, it's sitting on my desk in my office. Cool. Got it for you to use.
Yeah.
But the point of it is that handle right there. Oops. So the handle right here, this whole deal, I did. So, because that's what I do. I play with wood, not steel. So I got the blade, you know, and again, I watched all the Forged in Fire stuff, so I pretty much was an expert on putting handles on a knife, which is what I did. And it's not as easy as you would think. And every time that they're drilling holes in the scales on the side, you know, trying to get that pin stock to line up and everything, it's that hard. Like you have it on a drill press and you're like, oh man, drill perfect hole. And of course, it was also my first time doing it too. So I'm sitting there like, I got 3 clamps on this. 3 clamps.
Wow.
And I'm slowly turning each one well, not slowly. I was doing it pretty quick because it's 5-minute epoxy, right? It's
Right.
going to dry quickly. So I had to get those things on there fast. And I'd never done it before. So my version of fast, somebody who actually does knives for a living is like, oh my God. But I did it. And he was super happy with it and everything. So it kind of sparked an idea. And I enjoyed making it. I thought it was fun. You know, so I had an idea that we had talked about a couple weeks ago is, you know, if we wanted to do a run of 10, I can do like, you know, the Texas Bowie knife and
Well, but
doing stuff like that.
on top of your idea as well, though, you were also inspired by some perfectly shaped sticks in
Yes.
your backyard that would make for some really
Yes.
cool natural handles.
And that was the whole thing too. It's, you know, Texas Bowie knife, Texas wood handle, deer pin mosaic stock or pin stock in there, and just make it like this whole big Texas thing. So I've got mesquite sitting back there. We've got the white oak. You've got some pecan.
Some pecan wood. Pecan, yeah.
However people say it, because there's like 50 different pronunciations. for
Everybody
one
down
word.
here says pecan. I still say pecan. I've always
Yeah,
said pecan
it's-
my whole life.
So I just go the obnoxious route and say pecan.
Pecan wood. No, so yeah, we're thinking on maybe partnering up. So like Mike alluded to, he does woodworking. He's got a little side hustle with that, Wolf 6 Customs. And that page will probably be tagged in this podcast video. It's normally what we do, but this knife, also this sign that's behind us on the wall too. You surprised me with that one day. So your creativity knows no ends. But we're talking about doing a collaboration on those blades and everything. So I don't have a timeline or anything for y'all, but we wanted to throw this one up here and show it off real quick, and that way you guys can kind of tease what we're thinking about and everything. And I'm gonna take it a step farther, and just for anybody that's listening or watching the podcast, when the time comes for these knives to come out, if you use the promo code Wolf6 at checkout, you'll save some money. I don't know what that'll look like yet, but I'm putting it out there to the world right now, and it's going to be out there, so you guys can take advantage of that when the time comes. But
Well, and just to put it in perspective, I mean, my first tour in Afghanistan was 04 and 05, and I bought a K-bar at the PX in Afghanistan for $110.
Huh.
So, you know, today that same K-bar is, I don't know, maybe 150, 180, something like that.
yeah,
So, I mean, just ballparking it, you're probably for, you know, Damascus steel and, you know, the custom handle and stuff like that. If you were to have somebody make that knife, it'd probably be in the $700 to $1,000 range.
yeah.
That's not anywhere near what.
No, we're not making $1,000 knife here.
Well, we're making $1,000 knife.
we are. We're not gonna make
Yeah.
you pay $1,000.
So, but yeah, it's not hand forged, and you know, I'm not out there with a coal fired, you know, all this stuff, and
Right.
you know, my leather apron, and I mean, it'd be cool. I'd do that all day long.
Yeah, with your cowboy hat.
That's right. It's necessary.
Yeah, essentials.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good knife, and I have zero doubt that it will do the job that it needs to do. And And obviously this is the gunslinger cut. That's not a Texas Bowie. The Texas Bowie is going to be a couple inches longer and have a little bit longer handle. It'll be overall length of 12 inches. So it's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
It's going to be a big knife. But the handle is what I'm excited about because, I don't care about steel. I like doing wood stuff.
Yeah. Wood is where you can make your mark. So
Yep.
That's
and
awesome.
I've got tons with that white oak.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of that. And you've seen the pile of mesquite that I have out there.
Yeah.
And mesquite is a super, super hard wood. I don't know how brittle it is, but it's hard.
Right.
So we can do the mesquite. We can do that. We can do pecan wood if we got any left.
Yeah. Got a few
and I can.
cords.
I've got 15 acres plus the neighbors, that I bounce around in. So I'll look for some other species of stuff too. But we're pretty much for sure going to have those 2, possibly 3. But I want to keep it Texas native and have that whole thing centered around deer hunting in Texas.
Yeah. No, it'll be cool. I definitely encourage folks to keep an eye out and watch out for it because it's something that we're going to try to get off the ground here in the near future. Again, don't have a date for y'all, but keep your eyes out and save that code if you're interested in picking one up when the time comes. So save you a few bucks. But well, man, thanks for hopping on here with me again and diving deep.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's that yearly brush up, and I'm glad it's over. Now we can go on to more stupid stuff like talking about skunky hats.
Yeah.
Derek.
Yeah, so I didn't know this till Mike showed up. I guess I missed it on the social media, but old Derek Eves from Ridge Rock and Mike have been debating on social media, I guess, what makes a rookie hat.
Yeah. So yeah, if you don't have him on Facebook or me on Facebook, but you see the comments or something, yeah, I did a little smack talk on his sweat line on his hat the other day, and because we've known each other since never.
Since never, we're not friends.
Yeah, I don't know who he is. I walk right past him and have no clue who the guy is. But I do a lot of sweating in Texas here.
Yeah, don't we all?
Because it got cold the other day. Got down to 68. Was it 68 that day we were talking?
Yeah, I almost put a jacket on.
Yes. I was cold.
Yeah.
Like legit cold.
It got me excited for fall in July. I was very disappointed.
And then like 3 days later, it was 100 again. So
yeah,
that was awesome.
Been 100 ever since.
But anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of sweating that goes on. Last year was way worse.
Yeah.
But this year's had its moments. When I'm really getting after it, it's like I told him in the comment, he puts his picture of his hat up and it's got a little bit of sweat on the brow and everything. I was like, those are rookie sweat lines. And this is true. Like if I'm really out there doing stuff, like when I was chopping that wood that day, cutting it with the chainsaw and all that stuff, it looked like I peed my pants. I was just soaked all the way down to my knees. That's a sweat line. So I was going to bring this like scuzzy, disgusting hat that I was wearing that day. It's my camo hat and, yeah. It
Doesn't look camo anymore.
No, it's kind of
sweated
white.
The camo out of it.
It's white and it's very, very starched. We'll say that. It'll stand up on it. I could throw it and it'd break a window. So I was going to bring that hat, but I forgot it. So I came unprepared and I apologize to the masses for that.
Well, it's a good thought. It's a thought that counts, So. All right, guys. Well, appreciate y'all tuning in to another Fall Obsession podcast. I'm sure Mike will be on here again before too long, and we'll have another great discussion. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have anything to add on any of the topics we talked about today, we'd love to hear it and drop it in the comments or send us a message, whatever it might be. I'm always willing to talk about stuff. So appreciate y'all tuning in. Be sure you're liked, followed, subscribed, all that good stuff on all the platforms and notifications turned on, podcast platforms and YouTube. That way you know when we post new stuff. And with that, we're closing it down, and I'll be back with you guys again next week for another podcast. Catch you then.